And you've just heard Call of the West, which is taken from Oran Ra's album The Travellers. And I'm so pleased to be joined now by Michael, Daniel, Nathan, and Cameron from the band. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Yeah, and really good to see you all. And before we get to talk about the album more generally, what can you tell us about Call of the West, the track we've just heard?
Call of the West was it the second single that we put out before the album?
Yeah.
But it was thematically quite important because it was written kind of early on in the development of the album lyrically, and it was sort of inspired by a book called Dance Called America and a documentary that I remember being narrated by a very famous Scottish actor. I can't remember his name. Might have been Ken Stott or something like that. And it was about the kind of forced emigration of Scots in the 19th century. And there was a lot of kind of propaganda imagery and, go west and all that kind of stuff. So that fed into the lyric.
Oh, nice. I was... Now we go to the wider album. And it seems to me that there are kind of themes and ideas that kind of run through it. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. There was it kind of, I can't remember the chronology of it, but to begin with, there was a sort of feel that we wanted or we'd happened upon. We started to kind of chase that down with the kind of music that we were writing for it. And then, yeah, lyrically, there was lots of, there's a kind of red thread throughout the album. And I suppose as it went on, we became more focused on, like, not in a contrived way, but kind of deliberately trying to establish a kind of thematic cohesion and sort of imagery that carried through in the lyrics, and then music that helped sort of compound that so that it should feel like it's a sort of cohesive body of work. Because a lot of the records that we love and the ones that inspired the Travellers, they're not quite concept albums, but they're albums that feel like they have maybe a story or a journey, or even just the imagery. You know, that you look at the record, you can almost hear it. You look at the band on the back, if it's like, you know, one of these albums for like the early 80s or whatever, and it creates a sound in your head. And then when you listen to the album, it all kind of is like one package, not in a commercial way, but in a sort of like artistic way.
I think that's right. I think it does feel absolutely like a coherent album. There's different types of tracks on it, and we'll hear another one later, which is a bit different again, but they all fit thematically in terms of the sound as well. And it does, you know, and I think all the tracks work that way as well. Since we've got you all here, tell us what you're each doing on the record. That might be an idea.
Okay, I'm Daniel. I play the bass, a bit of backing vocals, and helped out with the lyrics and the production side of stuff as well, with the mixing, mastering, and the album cover as well.
I just played the drums.
There's no such thing as just playing the drums. Can you believe that? And yourself, Cameron?
Yeah, I played guitar.
So how did the recording go? Did you do it live, for instance?
Yes, it was done live. We recorded it live in Crawford John. Originally, we recorded this back in like 2018, 2019, and we kind of, as Cameron joined and then Nathan joined, we were kind of having to go back and add their bits into the record. But the more we added, the more we felt like we were kind of pulling in a different direction from what we originally had done. So we decided we wanted to do it again, and we had already been working on it for so long that there was kind of an urgency to it where we just wanted it to be, you know, get in and get it done at last. So we decided to do it live for that reason, but also because I think it gives it a sort of unique energy when you do it live, and the performances carry through better on the record. So yeah, we done it live in a single day, the whole album. Yeah, so we're all knackered by the end of it, but
it was horrible.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I've spoken to people, producers, who say if they're doing it that way, they don't want loads of takes. They basically want to do one or two takes and that's it, move on to the next thing. Was it that? If you've done it in a day, I take it was that kind of thing.
I think so, yeah. It was like 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah.
One of the songs took longer.
What one?
Past, I think it was The Past. Took a good 5 or 6 maybe, but
Yeah, there was I think the Pass and maybe Over the Moorlands, you'll know better than I, but one at least of them we ended up doing with no click because the feel, I think it must have been the Pass definitely, because the feel of it is kind of like it swings a little bit, and you can't, if you try and do it too rigidly, you'll lose the feeling of it. And so we ended up, it took a few times, and it actually ended up being the time where we just did it as if we were playing it at a gig. That was the take that we used.
So, Daniel, you were saying you've had these songs for a long time, going back into late 2010s. Were you originally thinking you were going to release it as a duo, as the two brothers? Or did you always know there was going to be other people involved?
No, we had the version that me and Mike had recorded in the house, and we used to work with a drummer called Fraser McConaughey, and we got him up to a studio in Lochfine. So he'd done the drums just as like a session drummer, and that was going to be it. It was going to be a duo, just the two of us. And that was the album that we were going to release. But then when we got CamGlen involved and we started doing it live, again, it was partly because so much time had passed from when we'd first recorded it, but also with that time we were developing a kind of new idea of the sound, and Cam was taking on the guitar parts and making them his own. So, and Mike's voice had changed so much over the years. We kind of thought at a certain point we stopped trying to fulfill a vision that we had however many years ago, and we just thought, what do we actually want to make now, you know? So that's why we went back and re-recorded it.
And Cameron and Nathan, what was it like then coming in to a complete set of songs already? Was it live that you got involved?
Yeah, it was. It's quite good in a way because there's a body of work that you can just kind of start learning. It's not like writing all new songs. It's obviously a bit intimidating because obviously Mike and Daniel have been playing together since they were wee boys. Yeah. So you kind of have to find your like niche in that dynamic. But it's fun just to come and like, here's 10 songs, we'll learn them and then see what happens with it, and then like seeing how the songs change from when I started to now. It's cool to see.
And Nathan, was it similar for you? Did you first learn them for live shows rather than studio?
Yeah, well, I think you guys set the songs, so I'll just put my earphones in, go for a run, and just listen to them over and over again. Because I stay in a wee flat in Glasgow, so I can't practice drums as much as I like. So I was just like, try to learn them as best I could, and then we'd have practices in the live room. But I think when we were practicing in the live room, we realised how much energy it had, you know?
Yeah.
Where it was like a lot of fun doing it, you know? So we're like, right, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, that was one of the big things that was like, that pushed us to do it the way we did it live, was particularly with the contribution of Cameron and Nathan. It was like, there was a kind of like a anger, it might be too strong a word, but there was like a kind of ferocity to the sound when we were playing in practice and live that wasn't present on the singles, and maybe wasn't quite there in the presentation of the band, if I can say that. I don't know what I quite mean by that, but something like that. It was like we wanted basically to kind of put all the energy at the front of the songs, because that's what even though they'd been written a certain way, the thing that was coming through was that like there was a kind of like not punk, but there's an album by the Skids called The Absolute Game, and it's like there's like a kind of fury just to the sound of the album, that when you put it on certain songs, it just sounds like it just is like cannoning out the speakers.
Yeah,
we weren't going to take it that far, but we wanted just that when people played the record, it was kind of undeniable in a way. It was like, oh, okay, the songs really kind of, you know, packed a punch. Because I think it's easy, especially when you're making like folk inspired music, to lean into a kind of almost twee, softer kind of sound. But that really wasn't, even though we're into kind of like softer folk stuff and things like that, the door that we came into that kind of music was far more to do with like big music that was like, you know, energetic and moved you just because of how it felt and sounded. So we wanted that because that's what we were creating in the room, the four of us, you know.
And having seen you live, there is an energy when you play live, so it was trying to capture that on record.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, that was the gig you were at, Ali, was our first ever, and that now seems totally tame compared to what we do now. Not that we're not like a heavy metal band, but there's just a kind of like we come off the stage and we're like sweating buckets. Like we played in Berwick last weekend or whatever, and there was little like sweat pouring down as if it was like some kind of, I don't know. There's an intensity basically, and we wanted to capture that thing. So if you come and see us again, I'm sure you will.
Which I will, definitely, especially after that, no doubt about it. And I'm interested that you recorded this in Crawford John, because I know Crawford John reasonably well, but hardly anyone else I know does. So how come you ended up in this little village in the west coast of Scotland?
Well, we've recorded there for years, since I was about 18, I think it was the first time we went there. It was the Bones studio with the Washes.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly he's passed away, but his sons run it now, Jamie and Ewan. So it's just, they're a great time. They really know what they're doing, but they're like sitting with your mates or extra band members. You know, it's really easy to get on with them, and they know what they're doing. So it's always a good time.
And I wondered, I've maybe read too much into this, but I feel that on the album there's a strong sense of place and the natural world as well. And I wondered if being in a place like Crawford John, which really is, you could go by it and not know it, that kind of is almost the perfect setting for you guys to make this record.
Aye, definitely, because it kind of mirrors where we kind of grew up in a way. Because the background we came out of was like kind of like that kind of place you could go by the village that we came from and not know it was there. Yeah. People do regularly go by it in the motorway and they'll just not know it exists. And like even though you know we've grown up in a time where there's like lots of transport links, you felt like you were like hundreds of miles away from anything that was happening. And so being in a place where you're recording that kind of it feels like there's a kind of through line there. And it definitely helps you when you're recording to be in the kind of place that the music feels like it, if it took place in a place, that's the kind of place it would be.
And if people want to know more about the album and the making of it, Daniel, you filmed a documentary which I watched a couple of weeks ago about it. Was that something that you just wanted to capture the reasons for making this record and the inspirations?
Yeah, I can't remember why we decided to do a documentary, to be honest. We love filmmaking and sort of all that side of things, which we're definitely still learning how to do it properly. But so it was fun for one, but as well, obviously nowadays you kind of need to have a content release, if you like, with any sort of music. It's got, and a lot of it is leaning towards short form content, which I don't know about the rest of the guys, but it doesn't really interest me. So I was thinking, if I was one of my favourite bands had just released a record, what would I like to see? And also, I think there's a story behind the album that it was almost like an explanation for why it took so long, a justification. And it was a nice way to sort of present all of that stuff that we had, because there's archival footage in there that's from like maybe 10, 12 years ago, because we were always filming stuff and taking pictures, but we never really had a reason for it. It was always just existed in a hard drive. So it was nice to kind of find a reason to present all of that work. And I think it came together quite nice.
It really is. If people want to check it out, it's over on your YouTube channel. It reminded me, again, going back to this idea of slightly old school, there's a lot of footage from bands from the 90s and before that, and it is them playing live as young, talking about it. You would maybe get as an extra on a DVD or something like that. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, definitely. That's the kind of stuff that when you delve deeper into a band beyond their social pages and their albums, and it's nice to be rewarded and find wee gems. And so hopefully anyone that's interested is, we don't expect it to be getting thousands of views, but it's nice that the people that are watching it are enjoying it and they seem to be giving us positive feedback. So,
and Michael, you kind of hinted earlier on that some of the influences were from bands or albums rather in the 80s that had a kind of completeness to every release. Could you talk a little bit about your influences, all of you, actually?
Yeah, Cameron, when Cameron joined the band, I literally sent him a document that had a list of like all the albums that we thought, if you need to listen to these are important. But
quiet listening.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I think it was called something like Albums of Great Importance.
Yeah.
So
I've still got it.
but the I like the big one, the one that was like the gateway to what music kind of means now, probably certainly for like me and Dan, was The Crossing by Big Country. We get Big Country a lot as a comparison, but they are to us probably what, like, I think it's interesting because they're not like seen as a massively influential band. I think some people think, oh, you sound like Big Country, and we probably do a bit, but they are to us what like the Beatles are probably to like everyone else in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like they literally changed the way that we thought about everything to do with music. So like, you know, Big Country, The Crossing, The Absolute Game by the Skids, Run Rig. There's a few Run Rig records, but particularly the early stuff. Like I'm looking at them now. Recovery, The Highland Connection, Heartland, Cut and the Clan. What else have we got here? The Armory Show, which was Richard Jobson's band after the Skids. They did one record, Waiting for the Floods, but that had a kind of cohesion. The Waterboys, This Is the Sea. The first few Waterboys records, actually, even like the Waterboys record and A Pagan Place and things like that. There's so many, but a lot of those like Scottish or, you know, Celtic is maybe an awful word, but that kind of stuff, you know.
At the time, a lot of it was under the banners, you say, a kind of terrible, the Celtic rock thing, but, you know, these are all great albums, absolutely. We're going to hear Brother later on, and that's definitely, you can hear the Big Country guitar, I think, on that without a doubt. And, you know, huge influential bands, why not be influenced by the best?
Exactly. But yeah, I'm not speaking for everyone because Cameron and Nathan and Dan will have different, you know, things. But that was like.
So let's ask: is there any that we wouldn't expect? Is there anything either on Michael's list or just that you kind of have as influences that we might not expect?
I'm a big metal guy, so like death metal and black metal. Obviously, doesn't really come out as an influence in this band. But that's what I listened to when I was growing up, and then kind of slowly got into maybe more normal music, coming out of my kind of teenage years. A lot of alternative rock, Dinosaur Jr., like 90s American alternative music, which I think kind of maybe was the start of a lot of the songs becoming a bit angrier, a bit louder, because I just have a tendency to put on loads of distortion.
Yeah,
I think that's probably a big influence on me.
Jay Mace is one of the great guitarists, you know, with Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, fantastic. I seen them a couple of months ago in the Barrowlands, and they're amazing. Yeah, they're so good.
And Nathan, as I said earlier on, a great drummer, it should be cherished. Is there any drummers that, you know, you brought in terms of influence?
Obviously, John Bonham was the big one, obviously, when you're younger. But I really like Chad Smith. There's a really good guy, Jojo Mayer. He's like a kind of drum and bass drummer. Just like known for just being a good drummer. He's not really in any rock bands or anything. He's kind of in a drum and bass band, but fantastic drummer. I was kind of similar. I like American alternative rock. And I like hip hop, Wu-Tang Clan, Nas. Big into that when I was younger. Aye, big time.
I can't wait for the next album when you're going to have all these extra.
I know. It's a jungle album next.
I mean, talking about it, we've spoken about how long these songs have been with you, Michael and Daniel in particular. Have you even considered what might come next, or are you still living with the Travellers at the moment?
We've started working on it already. Dan and I have been. We cannot always write, and we've known for a while, or we thought we knew for a while the kind of thing we were going to do next. But because the Travellers took so long, or not because of it, but the Travellers took a while. The songs were already set before these guys joined, so the idea of making a record that's like the four of us, everyone's bringing things in, or at least when the songs begin to exist in a real way when everyone's in the room. So, you know, like I might bring something in and go, here, can we try this? Or Dan the same. So we've already got we think we know what the first single of the next record is going to be, but we've not decided yet. But like, we've started playing things. We played a new song in Berwick. We did a semi-acoustic set at a pub the day before the festival, and we played like a brand new song. Not that any of those folks knew what was new and what was old, but I think, yeah, I'd like to start working on it in earnest pretty like rapid, because it's just, there's an excitement to that as well. Like when everyone's putting ideas in and it's happening. So
yeah, it sounds exciting, absolutely. And we've spoke earlier about playing live. Have you got any plans that you can tell us about, or is that not happening at the moment?
No, we've got a gig lined up September 18th in Glasgow, supporting David Moore and the Fackins in the Doublet.
All right.
Which it was announced on the Friday, and I think it's sold out on the Saturday, which is obviously great. But
upstairs in the Doublet, it's a great
lounge.
Thanks. So
it's really cool. Yeah.
We've not been, but Cammy saw Scots Dance Band there. So we had a good report from the venue.
It was very energetic. It's quite like vital, maybe is the word. Very warm.
And as I say, we're going to play Brother in a moment. And before we do, is there anything you could tell us about that track? Personal, I'm presuming.
Well, it's interesting, and it's maybe a good moment to that song, Feeling Personal, sort of captures maybe what's happened to a lot of the songs in a way. So musically, as we've said, like there's a lot of energy that's been brought to the songs with the four of us. But weirdly, lyrically, most of the songs were written with a kind of like story in mind, or a kind of a kind of almost escapist, but not quite story that's maybe set some time ago, particular setting, particular sense of place and time. But as we've played the songs more and more and playing them live, they do start to feel more personal, and even you sort of like realize or rediscover things about them that are personal. So originally that song was about it was kind of a war song in a way, or not quite war, but about young men being taken from what they know and then losing themselves, either because they lose their lives or they lose a sense of who they are, whether it's in conflict or just a change in circumstance. And that's sort of now probably it is kind of personal to Dan and I. And yeah, some of the lyrics, particularly the opening line and stuff like that, are personal to situations that we were in, particularly in our kind of mid-teens. But at the time that they were written, you didn't quite realise that, because a lot of those lyrics were written, like I say, sort of to address things that felt important, but in a way that wasn't direct. And now you kind of realise, oh, I think I'm actually talking about that when I say that, you know. So that it is personal, but it's also, hopefully, there's a story there as well that anyone can kind of...
Yeah, I think anyone can kind of empathise with the lyrics, absolutely. But I think often it's the really personal stuff that people do empathise with because of that, I think. Yeah,
specificity breeds universality. Yeah. And I mean, I've heard that said about certain American songwriters who, like, they write about, you know, it's like a street on their hometown that no one else knows the name of, and like the girl that they fell in love with, and it's such a specific story, but then it ends up becoming like so massive for like hundreds of thousands of people, because it's the realness of the emotion and the trueness of the story that connects. It's not just big message, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It has for us too.
And this is Oran Ra and Brother.